There is a deep secret in every glance of desire, a truth we rarely want to face. We speak of love as if it were gentle, pure, and radiant, yet beneath its surface burns a fire that does not care for morality or reason. To understand attraction, we must step into the shadows it conceals, for only there do we see its full power, both to create and to destroy. The shadow of desire is one of the most unsettling truths about sexual attraction, because it exposes how much of what we long for is not shaped by conscious choice, but by what has been pushed down, ignored, or denied. Attraction does not arise only from the polished, socially acceptable aspects of the self. It also grows out of the unacknowledged regions of the psyche, those areas where impulses, fantasies, and longings have been banished because they do not fit the image we want to uphold. The forbidden carries a strange power. It whispers from behind the curtain of repression, drawing the gaze even when the mind protests. This is why sexual attraction often feels overwhelming and irrational. It does not obey reason, it does not submit to morality, and it does not remain confined within the boundaries of what is comfortable. Instead, it surges up from what lies hidden, the unspoken needs and secret hungers that dwell in the shadows of the self. When people speak of attraction, they often reduce it to visible qualities, beauty, charm, confidence, or compatibility. Yet beneath those surface explanations lies a darker pull, the recognition of something that resonates with one's own denied aspects. A person may be drawn to someone not because that individual reflects their ideals, but because they embody the very qualities the person has rejected in themselves. The controlling one feels enchanted by the free spirit. The rule-abiding soul becomes magnetized by the reckless. The gentle are intrigued by the fierce. These attractions bewilder precisely because they do not fit the conscious story one tells about who they are and what they want. What is repressed seeks expression, and it often finds its doorway through desire. This shadowed nature of attraction also explains why it can carry so much danger. The more deeply a person has denied or disowned a part of themselves, the more violently they may be pulled toward it when it appears in another. What begins as fascination can intensify into obsession because the psyche senses an opportunity to reclaim a lost fragment of itself. Yet if this process is unconscious, the attraction becomes destructive. Instead of seeing the other person as they are, one sees only the mirror of one's own shadow. The relationship then becomes a battlefield where denied impulses and unresolved conflicts are projected, clung to, or violently rejected. This is why love can so quickly turn into hatred, or why passion can collapse into resentment. The shadow was never integrated, it was only disguised as desire. To understand the shadow of desire is to realize that sexual attraction is not a simple instinct to reproduce or a mere taste for beauty. It is a profound psychological event rooted in the hidden depths of the self. It reveals what one fears, what one hides, and what one unconsciously seeks to recover. That is why it carries such intensity, why it overrides rational boundaries, and why it can feel both intoxicating and dangerous. Sexual attraction thrives on polarity, and its deepest currents are stirred not by sameness, but by the meeting of opposites. The tension between light and dark, safety and danger, purity and corruption forms the magnetic field in which desire awakens. It is not simply the beauty of another that captivates, but the contrast they evoke within us, the way they illuminate what we are not or what we do not allow ourselves to be. Desire, in this sense, is not just the pull toward another body, but the gravitational force created by the collision of opposing energies. The sacred and the profane coexist within this attraction, and it is precisely their union that gives erotic longing its peculiar intensity. When a person feels safe, there is comfort. But attraction requires more than comfort. it requires a spark, and that spark is ignited when something disrupts the familiar. A figure of danger, mystery, or transgression unsettles the calm surface of the self and stirs it into movement. This is why people are drawn not only to those who resemble them, but to those who embody qualities they lack. The shy may be drawn to the bold, the orderly to the chaotic, the morally restrained to the rebellious. The attraction becomes a bridge between extremes, a way the psyche attempts to reconcile inner polarities by seeking them outwardly in another. It is not the harmony of similarity that fuels desire, but the restless vibration between contrasts. The duality of purity and corruption is particularly powerful in this dynamic. What is untouched or innocent is often alluring because it represents a kind of ideal, a symbol of renewal or untouched possibility. At the same time, what is corrupted or forbidden has its own dark appeal because it represents danger, freedom, or raw vitality. When these forces coexist, when innocence brushes against temptation, the attraction becomes overwhelming. It is the sense of stepping into a threshold, standing between two worlds, neither entirely safe nor entirely doomed, that creates the erotic charge. Desire thrives at that boundary, where contradictions meet and dissolve. This polarity is not only external but also internal. Each individual carries within them both light and shadow, restraint and impulse, order and chaos. Sexual attraction often becomes the stage where these inner opposites are played out through the presence of another. To be drawn to someone who seems dangerous is to confront the danger within oneself. To be enchanted by purity is to encounter the longing for innocence buried in one's own depths. The other becomes a mirror reflecting back the dualities that already live inside, yet are rarely reconciled. The erotic spark is not simply about them, but about the unresolved polarity one carries in secret. The reason attraction can feel so destabilizing is that it exposes these opposites without allowing them to rest. It places the individual in a state of suspension, where desire is fueled by tension that cannot be resolved easily. The longing is to unite the two, to collapse the duality, to experience wholeness through the merging of contrasts. Until that union is sought consciously, attraction remains a powerful, restless force, sustained by the endless dance of opposites. Most people imagine that they are attracted to others because of who those others are, yet in truth, attraction often unfolds as a projection of the inner image carried unconsciously within the psyche. Each individual harbors deep-seated patterns, archetypal figures, and half-formed fantasies of what the ideal companion should be. These are not consciously designed, nor are they the product of rational preference. They are built over years of experience, shaped by memory, culture, early relationships, and the unspoken desires of the soul. When someone appears who resembles that hidden image, a spark ignites, and the person becomes less an individual in their own right and more a screen onto which the unconscious projects its inner picture. What feels like recognition of another is often a recognition of the self, concealed beneath layers of longing and imagination. This process explains why attraction often feels immediate and irrational. The pull toward another is not the slow calculation of compatibility, but the sudden shock of familiarity. The eyes catch a gesture, a tone of voice, or an aura of presence, and it resonates with the inner image, long carried in silence. The heart insists that this person is special, unique, destined, yet in reality, the uniqueness lies not in them, but in the secret landscape they have awakened within. The individual is transformed into a vessel for an internal figure, and the depth of attraction corresponds to the depth of the projection. This projection, however, carries within it a hidden danger. Because the other person is seen not as they are, but as the embodiment of an inner ideal, the relationship is built on illusion as much as on reality. What is adored may not belong to the other at all, but to the dream that has been cast upon them. This is why people often feel disillusioned when time strips away the projection and reveals the ordinary flaws, the contradictions, and the human complexity that were invisible at first. The beloved is no longer the ideal figure of the unconscious, but a real person who cannot sustain the weight of fantasy. Disappointment arises, not because they changed, but because the projection dissolved. Yet the projection of the inner image is not simply a deception, it is also a profound revelation. It shows what the psyche is searching for, what qualities it longs to embrace, and what hidden parts of the self are seeking recognition. To fall in love, even under the spell of projection, is to come into contact with the unexpressed yearnings that live within. The other becomes a mirror, reflecting the beauty, the danger, or the mystery that has always been part of one's inner world. Through this mirror, one is given the chance to recognize and integrate those qualities consciously, rather than leaving them buried in shadow. The darkest truth about projection in attraction is that it blurs the boundary between self and other. The person who is desired may never truly be seen, yet through them, the hidden image of the soul comes alive. It is both a trap and a gift, a source of painful illusions and profound self-discovery. Sexual attraction is never a purely gentle or innocent force, because bound into its very structure is a double-edged nature. It gives life, but it can also destroy. At its brightest, attraction unites people in intimacy, nurtures creation, and deepens the sense of connection with the world. It inspires art, builds families, and fuels the fire of passion that makes life vivid. Yet beneath this radiant surface lies another current, one that twists attraction into obsession, jealousy, possession, and violence when it moves in the shadows of the unconscious. The same energy that can bind two people together in devotion can also drive them into destructive patterns when it is consumed by fear, insecurity, or unchecked hunger. Desire carries within it the seeds of obsession because it awakens such a raw intensity that the psyche struggles to contain it. When one feels overwhelmingly drawn to another, the boundary between admiration and fixation can blur. Instead of recognizing the other as a free and separate being, they become an object of possession, the answer to an inner hunger that feels unquenchable. What begins as fascination transforms into dependency, and the more the desire grows, the more fragile and volatile it becomes. The beloved is no longer cherished but demanded, no longer respected but consumed. This is why attraction, when it is unconscious, so often spirals into jealousy or controlling behavior. It ceases to be about union and becomes about domination, a desperate attempt to grasp and hold what cannot truly be owned. The destructive aspect of attraction also emerges in the way it can magnify hidden insecurities. When someone becomes the focus of desire, they awaken not only longing but also fear. The fear of losing them, the fear of not being enough, the fear of betrayal or rejection. These fears can twist passion into paranoia, affection into suspicion, and love into a battlefield of control and resentment. The intensity of erotic energy amplifies everything it touches, so that the smallest gestures become charged with meaning and the slightest distance feels like abandonment. Desire makes the heart vulnerable, but without awareness it can transform that vulnerability into cruelty as the instinct to protect one's longing lashes out in destructive ways. There is also a darker truth in the way attraction sometimes aligns with aggression. Passion can carry a violent edge because it is born from instinctual drives that do not care for boundaries or morality. The language of love has always carried hints of conquest, of burning, of being consumed, and this reveals the primal root of desire as something that does not always distinguish between nurture and destruction. Left unintegrated, this energy can spill over into acts that wound rather than heal, turning intimacy into a theater of power rather than union. Attraction, therefore, holds a paradox. It is both sacred and dangerous, both the source of life and the whisper of ruin. To encounter its full force is to stand at the threshold where the creative and the destructive intertwine, where love can rise into transcendence or collapse into shadow. Attraction is often reduced to the mechanics of biology, a chemical pull between bodies designed for reproduction, yet this explanation only touches the surface of a much deeper reality. Beneath the instinctive drive of the body lies a call from the psyche, a hunger not only for flesh but for meaning. The meeting of two people is never just about biology, it is also the meeting of two inner worlds, two invisible landscapes shaped by dreams, wounds, and unspoken desires. Attraction, in this sense, becomes a dialogue between instinct and soul, a conversation in which raw impulses intertwine with the longing for transcendence. The animal seeks continuation of life, while the spirit seeks recognition, reflection, and wholeness. Both speak at once, and their voices mingle in ways that are difficult to separate. The instinctual side of attraction carries the urgency of survival. It is direct, unthinking, and primal, urging one to move toward another with a force that feels irresistible. It is the ancient rhythm of life repeating itself, ensuring that bodies find one another, ensuring that life persists. Yet if attraction were only this, it would not stir the imagination so deeply, nor would it leave behind such enduring myths, stories, and obsessions. There is something within desire that cannot be explained by nature alone, something that points to the hidden layers of the soul. This is why attraction is often accompanied by a sense of destiny, a feeling that meeting someone is not just chance but fate. The biological drive does not explain this. It is the voice of the deeper self seeking its reflection in the world. The soul's involvement in attraction transforms it from a simple urge into an experience rich with symbolism. A person may feel pulled toward another, not only for their body, but for what they seem to represent: freedom, danger, purity, wisdom, or mystery. These qualities awaken something unexpressed within, something that longs to be seen and lived. Attraction then becomes a messenger, revealing hidden dimensions of the self that have not yet found their place in consciousness. It is less about possessing another person and more about awakening something within oneself that has been waiting in silence. The tension between instinct and soul, however, creates complexity and often suffering. When instinct dominates without the guidance of the psyche, attraction can become shallow, compulsive, or destructive, reducing the other person to an object of gratification. When the soul dominates without recognition of the body's truth, attraction can dissolve into fantasy, ungrounded and unattainable, leaving the seeker lost in illusions. The darkest truth lies in the fact that both forces are always at work, pulling in different directions, demanding reconciliation. To deny either one is to fragment the experience, to cut off a part of what makes attraction so powerful. What emerges is the realization that desire is never simple. It is both instinct and spirit, survival and transcendence, animal drive and divine calling. It cannot be reduced to one or the other, for it exists in the space between them, binding the flesh to the soul in a restless, unending dialogue. To face the darkest truth of attraction is not to run from it, but to bring it into the light where it can be transformed. Desire, when left unconscious, remains a wild and unruly force, capable of binding people in obsession, illusion, and destructive entanglements. It becomes something that uses the individual rather than something the individual can use for growth. The path forward is not denial, for repression only strengthens the shadow of attraction, making it more dangerous and more controlling. The task is recognition, the willingness to see desire as it truly is, with all its beauty and its darkness, its capacity for love and its potential for ruin. By naming it honestly and exploring its roots, one begins the process of transforming it from a force of enslavement into one of elevation. Recognition requires courage because it means admitting that attraction is not always noble. It means acknowledging the impulses that are selfish, the fantasies that are forbidden, the longings that clash with one's moral self-image. It requires facing the fact that desire is not always about union with another, but often about reclaiming lost parts of the self through projection. To integrate attraction is to stop pretending it is purely romantic, purely good, or purely about the other person, and to see instead the mirror it holds up to one's own hidden depths. Such honesty does not weaken desire, but clarifies it, allowing it to be experienced without the fog of delusion. When attraction is integrated consciously, it shifts in its expression. It no longer demands possession or control because it is no longer fueled solely by repression or hunger. Instead, it becomes a channel for creativity, intimacy, and growth. The same energy that once risked becoming destructive is now harnessed toward deeper connection and meaning. The longing for union with another can be seen as symbolic of the deeper longing for union within the self, the reconciliation of one's own inner opposites. This recognition allows relationships to move beyond obsession into genuine encounter, where the other is no longer only a vessel for projection, but a partner in discovery. Integration also opens the possibility of transforming raw erotic energy into something larger than the personal. Throughout history, this energy has inspired art, myth, and spiritual practice precisely because it is one of the most powerful currents in human life. When unconscious, it drags people into turmoil, but when recognized, it becomes fuel for creation and transcendence. To integrate attraction is to channel the primal force of life into forms that expand rather than diminish, that unite rather than destroy. The darkest truth, then, is that attraction carries both danger and possibility. To deny it leaves one vulnerable to its shadow. To confront it is to discover that within the very energy that enslaves lies the potential for freedom, and within the very desire that blinds lies the possibility of vision. Integration is not the end of desire, but its transformation into a path of wholeness. The darkest truth about sexual attraction is that it is never only about the other. It is about the hidden depths of ourselves. It is shadow and light, instinct and soul, creation and destruction woven into a single force. To deny it is to be ruled by it. To fear it is to be enslaved by it, but to confront it is to awaken to its transformative power. When we recognize desire not as an enemy but as a mirror, we take the first step toward wholeness. For within the very hunger that unsettles us lies the possibility of union not only with another, but with the lost and forgotten parts of our own being,